My name is Ethan Caldwell. I'm 38 years old, and I teach history at Howard University in Washington, D.C. For 8 years, I thought I had built something solid with my wife, Chloe Vance. We met during graduate school back in 2015, married in 2017, and I genuinely believed we shared the same dreams. I contributed every dime I earned to our life together. I even used part of my grandfather's inheritance to help buy our condo in DuPont Circle in 2019. It was a modest two-bedroom unit in a building from the 1970s. Nothing ostentatious, but it was ours. The purchase price was $450,000, which was reasonable for that area of the city. I've always been the reserved, analytical type. I don't raise my voice. I don't look for confrontations. And I solve problems with patience and logic, the same way I approach teaching. My students respect that about me, and I thought my wife did too. Looking back now, I realize that what I saw as a strength, she must have seen as a weakness. That was my first mistake. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but I thought it was stable. We had our routines. I'd grade papers in the evenings while she worked on her laptop, managing social media accounts for small businesses through Instagram and Facebook. We'd share dinner, watch Netflix, talk about our days, normal couple stuff. At least, that's what I believed was happening. The first signs appeared in early 2024. Chloe started taking trips, women's retreats. She called them weekend getaways for self-discovery and attending personal growth workshops. She came back with expensive jewelry, new clothes, and designer bags that seemed far above what her freelance income could afford. When I asked about it, she'd smile and say she had made new contacts and found better clients. I believed her. That was my second mistake. Then came the financial irregularities. Small at first, $50 here, $100 there, cash withdrawals that didn't match our usual spending patterns. When I mentioned it, Chloe became defensive. "You're micromanaging me, Ethan. I need some freedom with money too." So, I backed off. I always backed off. That was becoming a pattern. If you enjoy stories of cold vengeance and intense plot twists, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now. We have new, untold stories every day, each one more intense than the last. 2 months ago, in early July of 2025, everything changed. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The summer heat was oppressive, and I was reviewing class plans for the fall semester. Chloe had been unusually quiet during dinner, picking at her food and constantly checking her phone. I should have recognized the signs, but I was focused on my work, thinking about the unit on reconstruction that I needed to update. "Ethan, we need to talk," she said. Her tone was different, cold, almost businesslike. She wasn't looking at me, just staring intently at a spot on the kitchen wall behind my head. I put down my pen and gave her my full attention. "What's on your mind?" She took a deep breath, and what followed felt rehearsed, practiced, as if she had told herself this in the mirror dozens of times. "I want a divorce." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. Years of teaching had trained me to control my reactions, especially when dealing with unexpected situations. "All right," I said softly. "We can talk about what's wrong, what we can work on." She shook her head. "There's nothing to work on. I'm done. I've already spoken to an attorney." She had already spoken to an attorney. Of course she had. This wasn't a conversation. It was a notification. "I see," I said. "What are you thinking in terms of arrangements?" That's when her mask slipped, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Pure, cold calculation. "The condo will be mine. I contributed to it too, and I need stability during this transition." I want 70% of our savings account, and you'll pay me spousal support for 5 years. My lawyer says it's reasonable, considering I gave up career opportunities to support your academic aspirations. Every demand felt like another slap in the face. The condo my grandfather had helped us buy, the savings account I'd filled with my $7,000 a month professor's salary while she claimed to be building her business, spousal support for a woman who had never supported my career in any meaningful way. But it was her final statement that truly revealed who she had become. She looked me straight in the eyes for the first time that evening, and her smile conveyed absolute contempt. "You're just a professor, Ethan. You don't have the money for a real lawyer. You can't fight me on this." I sat there for a long moment, processing what I had just heard. Not just the legal demands, but the disdain behind them, the assumption that I was powerless, the belief that 8 years of marriage could be dissolved with such cruelty. "I understand," I finally said. She looked surprised by my calm response. Perhaps she expected anger, tears, desperate negotiation. Instead, I simply nodded. "I'll need some time to process this. We can review the specifics in a few days." "Sure," she said. But her smile suggested she thought the conversation was already over, that I had accepted defeat before the battle had even begun. That night, as Chloe slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. She was right about one thing. I didn't have the money for an expensive divorce attorney. My professor's salary was comfortable, but not extravagant. Her lawyer would cost more per hour than I made in a day. But she was wrong about something far more important. She assumed I had no options, no resources, and no one to turn to. She had forgotten about my brother, Lawrence Caldwell, my older brother by 4 years, and one of the most feared divorce lawyers in Washington, D.C. We hadn't spoken in nearly a decade, not since our father's funeral in 2016, when we had an ugly argument about family obligations and career choices. He thought I was wasting my potential in academia. I thought he was a corporate shark with no soul. We were probably both right. But Lawrence was also brilliant, ruthless, and expensive. He was the kind of lawyer who charged $950 per hour in 2025 and was worth every penny. He specialized in high-profile divorce cases, representing business owners, politicians, and celebrities. His reputation was built on finding weaknesses in opposing cases and exploiting them with surgical precision. The legal community respected him. His opponents feared him. The morning after Chloe's ultimatum, I sat in my home office reviewing everything I knew about our finances. As a history professor, I am trained to analyze evidence, to reconstruct narratives from scattered documents. I applied those same skills to my marriage, and what I found was troubling. Over the past 18 months, there had been consistent cash withdrawals from our joint account, always in amounts just below $1,000, likely to avoid triggering bank notifications. The timing often coincided with her supposed weekend trips, but more interesting were the credit card charges I had never paid attention to before. Expensive restaurants in Atlanta, hotel rooms in Miami, luxury boutiques in Georgetown, all on days when she claimed to be attending those women's retreats. I called my friend Marcus Jones, a CPA who had helped me with tax preparation for years. "Marcus, I need a favor. Can you look at some bank statements? Unofficial consultation." "What's going on, Ethan?" "Chloe wants a divorce. I need to understand our financial landscape before I respond." He agreed to meet that afternoon. When I showed him the evidence, Marcus whistled softly. "Ethan, This looks like a systematic diversion of marital assets. These patterns suggest she's been funding something significant, or someone. How significant are we talking? He did some quick calculations. Based on these withdrawals and charges, at least $45,000 over 18 months, maybe more if she has other accounts you don't know about. $45,000. That was nearly half of our total savings. Money I had assumed was going toward household expenses and her business investments. Money that was apparently buying someone else's affection. That same afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I looked up my own brother. His firm's website was impressive. Caldwell and Ivy at Sewells, specializing in complex family law. Client testimonials praised his thoroughness and results. Legal blogs mentioned his recent high-profile case victories. He had built exactly the career he had always wanted. His success stung a little. While I had been content with my modest professor's life, he had become a legal powerhouse. But pride was a luxury I couldn't afford now. I found his direct office number and stared at my phone for 20 minutes before dialing. It rang 3 times. Lawrence Caldwell. His voice was deeper than I remembered, more authoritative. The voice of someone accustomed to being in control. Lawrence, it's Ethan. A long pause. Ethan, it's been a while. 9 years, I said. 9 years, he agreed. What's the occasion? I could hear the caution in his tone. We had parted on such bitter terms that a phone call seemed impossible. I need help. Legal help. Another pause. What kind of legal help? Chloe wants a divorce. She's making demands that seem aggressive. I believe she's been diverting marital assets to fund an affair. The line went silent for so long I thought he might have hung up. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted from cautious to cautiously interested. That's a serious accusation, Ethan. Are you sure? I have documentation. Bank records, credit card statements. Marcus Jones reviewed them and believes there's a pattern. Marcus is good, Lawrence said slowly. If he sees something, it's worth looking into. But Ethan, I need to ask you, why are you calling me? We haven't exactly been close. The question hung between us like a bridge I wasn't sure I could cross. Because, despite everything that happened between us, you're still my brother. And because she looked me in the eye and told me I was powerless, I'd like to prove her wrong. Another long pause. When Lawrence spoke again, there was something different in his voice. Not warmth, exactly, but recognition. All right, I'll take a preliminary look. No promises, but send me what you have. If there's something there, we'll discuss terms. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when we win. For the next few weeks, I became a forensic accountant of my own life. Every receipt, every statement, every financial record went into carefully organized files. Lawrence's initial review was promising enough that he agreed to take the case. Though he cautioned me that Chloe's lawyer might be more formidable than expected. Stanley Morris doesn't take cases he can't win, Lawrence told me during our first official meeting. If he's confident, it means Chloe has convinced him that she is in the right. That might work to our advantage if we can prove she's been lying to him, too. Lawrence hired an investigator, a former D.C. Metro Police Department detective named Rob Tillman, to track Chloe's activities. While Rob worked, Lawrence prepared our counter strategy. The relationship between us remained formal, professional, but I could catch glimpses of the brother I remembered in the way he explained legal concepts, patient but thorough. The key, he said, is not just to prove she took the money. It's to prove she did it deliberately to defraud the marriage while planning to leave. That transforms this from a property dispute to a case of fraud and forgery. 3 weeks after the investigation began, Rob hit the jackpot. The expensive dinners weren't random. They followed a pattern, always in cities where a man named Devin Brooks traveled for business. Devin was a pharmaceutical sales representative based in Atlanta, divorced, with a LinkedIn profile that showed him at conferences in the exact same cities where Chloe claimed to be attending women's retreats. She's been seeing this guy for over a year, Rob reported. Hotel records show they've been meeting up regularly. The jewelry purchases coincide with significant dates in their relationship. She's not just having an affair, Ethan. She's been living a double life. Lawrence leaned back in his leather chair, studying the evidence spread across his desk. This changes the entire dynamic. Morris thinks he's handling a routine dissolution with an advantageous settlement. He has no idea his client has been committing fraud. What do we do with this? We wait. Let them file their petition with all their confident demands. Then we respond with evidence they never saw coming. The shock value alone will be worth the element of surprise. The first hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in late July at the D.C. Superior Court Family Division. Chloe had been pushing for a quick resolution, likely hoping to catch me off guard before I could mount a proper defense. Her lawyer, Stanley Morris, was known for aggressive tactics and intimidating opposing counsel who couldn't afford prolonged litigation. They expected me to show up alone, overwhelmed, and ready to agree to whatever terms they offered. They were about to be in for the surprise of their lives. I arrived at the courthouse at 8:30 a.m., 30 minutes before our scheduled hearing. The building was imposing, all concrete and austere governmental architecture, designed to remind everyone inside that justice was a serious affair. I wore my best suit, the navy blue one I reserved for faculty presentations and important occasions. I felt nervous, but also strangely calm. Everything was out of my hands now. Chloe was already in the hallway with Morris, reviewing documents. She had dressed for battle, an elegant black pantsuit, hair severely pulled back, the kind of look that said she meant business. When she saw me approaching, her expression was almost compassionate, as if she were about to do something unpleasant but necessary. "Ethan," she said with false warmth, "I hope you've had time to consider our proposal. We can still settle this amicably." Morris stepped forward. He was exactly as I had expected. Expensive suit, aggressive handshake, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "Mr. Caldwell, I'm Stanley Morris. I represent your wife. I understand you are proceeding without representation." "Actually," I said, checking my watch, "my counsel should be here any minute." Chloe's eyebrows raised slightly. "Counsel? Ethan, I thought we discussed this. You can't afford—" She stopped mid-sentence. Her face went completely white. Lawrence had arrived. He walked down the courthouse hallway as if he owned it, which in many ways he did. Impeccable charcoal gray suit, Italian leather briefcase, the kind of presence that made other lawyers step aside. At his age, my brother had the bearing of someone who had never lost a case he cared about winning. His reputation preceded him into every room. "Apologies for the delay," he said, extending his hand toward me. I-395 traffic was impossible. Morris's face had gone through several interesting color changes. "Lawrence Caldwell, you are representing Mr. Caldwell." "Oh." "I am. Ethan Caldwell is my client." Lawrence's smile was professional, but direct. "And my brother." The silence that followed was deafening. Chloe looked like she might faint. Morris was rapidly recalculating every assumption he had made about this case. Other lawyers in the hallway had stopped their conversations to stare. Everyone knew who Lawrence was. "I was unaware Mr. Caldwell had retained counsel of your caliber." Morris said carefully. Well, now you know. Shall we go in? I believe Judge Reeves is waiting. The courtroom was smaller than I had expected, but it felt like a coliseum. Judge Pamela Reeves was known for running an efficient docket and having little patience for dramatics. She had been on the family bench for 15 years and had seen every dirty trick in the book. Good morning, she said as we took our seats. I have a petition for divorce filed by Ms. Chloe Vance Caldwell against Mr. Ethan Caldwell. Ms. Caldwell is represented by Mr. Morris. Mr. Caldwell is represented by Mr. Lawrence Caldwell. This is unusual, Your Honor, Morris began. We are seeking a straightforward dissolution with terms we believe are reasonable, given the circumstances of the marriage. Judge Reeves nodded. Mr. Caldwell, I assume you have a response. Lawrence rose fluidly to his feet. Indeed, Your Honor. We are filing a counterclaim that includes several serious allegations. My client has uncovered evidence of systematic diversion of marital assets by Ms. Caldwell to fund an extramarital relationship. We are requesting a full financial audit, the reimbursement of misappropriated funds, and sanctions against the plaintiff for fraudulent concealment. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Morris was frantically shuffling papers, clearly caught completely by surprise. Chloe had gone pale again, her hands clutching the edge of the table. That is a serious accusation, Mr. Caldwell, Judge Reeves said. Do you have documentation to support these claims? Extensive documentation, Your Honor. Bank records, credit card statements, hotel receipts, travel records, and photographic evidence of Ms. Caldwell's activities over the past 18 months. We also have the testimony of a private investigator regarding Ms. Caldwell's relationship with a Mr. Devin Brooks of Atlanta, Georgia. I watched Chloe's face crumble. The mention of Devin's name hit her like a physical blow. Morris leaned in to whisper urgently in her ear, but she barely responded. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Judge Reeves reviewed the initial paperwork. Ms. Caldwell, are you prepared to respond to these allegations? Morris stood up, trembling slightly. Your Honor, we require time to review these claims. We were not prepared for this level of complexity in what we anticipated to be a routine dissolution. Mr. Morris, your client made very specific financial demands in her initial petition. 70% of marital assets, 5 years of spousal support, and exclusive ownership of the marital home. Those demands suggest she was very much prepared for complexity. Lawrence stepped forward. Your Honor, if I may, Ms. Caldwell's demands become particularly interesting when viewed in light of her spending patterns. She is requesting spousal support while simultaneously having spent approximately $45,000 of marital funds on her relationship with Mr. Brooks. She wants the condo while systematically draining the savings that helped purchase it. This is not a petition for dissolution, Your Honor. It is attempted larceny. The phrase attempted larceny hung in the air like smoke from a gunshot. Even I had to admire Lawrence's flair for the dramatic. Morris looked like he wanted to object, but he had nothing to object to. The facts were the facts. Judge Reeves set down her papers. I'm going to order a full financial audit of both parties' assets and expenditures over the past 2 years. I will also appoint a receiver to ensure all marital assets are properly accounted for. Ms. Caldwell, you are prohibited from disposing of any marital property or assets pending the resolution of this matter. We will reconvene in 8 weeks to review the audit results and proceed with mediation if both parties can reach an agreement. As the hearing concluded, I could see Chloe's entire strategy collapsing in real time. Her confident demands had been replaced by legal risk. Her quick settlement had turned into a prolonged investigation. Her assumption that I was powerless had been shattered by the presence of a man in an expensive suit. Outside the courtroom, Morris pulled Chloe aside for what looked like a very unpleasant conversation. I could see her gesticulating frantically, likely trying to explain why she hadn't mentioned the affair or the expenditures. Morris kept shaking his head, clearly realizing that his client had lied to him about material facts. Lawrence watched them with clinical interest. "He's about to quit the case," he murmured. "How do you know?" Body language. "He's realizing she's made him look incompetent in front of Judge Reeves. Morris has a reputation to protect. He's not going to let a lying client destroy it." Sure enough, Morris walked away from Chloe and headed toward the parking garage without looking back. She was left alone on the courthouse steps, looking lost and desperate. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "What happens now?" I asked. Lawrence packed his briefcase methodically. "Now we wait for the audit results and prepare for the final hearing. She wanted a war, Ethan, but wars have consequences. She's about to learn what it costs to underestimate a Caldwell." For the first time in weeks, I smiled. It felt good. The 8 weeks between hearings passed with an intensity I had never experienced. The court-ordered financial audit was conducted by a forensic accountant specializing in divorce cases. Every transaction, every withdrawal, every credit card charge was examined in microscopic detail. Meanwhile, Rob continued to compile evidence on Chloe's relationship with Devin Brooks. What we uncovered exceeded even our worst expectations. The audit revealed that Chloe had diverted almost $65,000 over 18 months, not the $45,000 we had initially calculated. She had opened a secret credit card in her maiden name, taken cash advances against it, and used our joint account to make the payments. She had also forged my signature on a home equity line of credit application, borrowing $30,000 against our condo, without my knowledge. But the most damaging evidence came from Devin Brooks himself. Rob had located him at a pharmaceutical conference in Miami. Confronted with the possibility of being named as a co-defendant in a fraud and forgery case, Devin decided that cooperation was his best option. He provided detailed records of their relationship, including WhatsApp messages, hotel receipts, and photos Chloe had sent him. More importantly, he admitted that Chloe had told him she was already divorced and that I was paying her a substantial settlement. She had been lying to everyone, including her lover. 2 weeks before our return hearing, Morris formally withdrew as Chloe's counsel, citing irreconcilable differences regarding case strategy. In simple terms, he had discovered she'd lied to him about material facts, making it impossible for him to ethically represent her. She was forced to find new representation on short notice, finally settling for a nervous junior lawyer from a low-level firm named Perry Young, who specialized in simple divorces, not complex fraud cases. During this period, something unexpected happened between Lawrence and me. The professional relationship began to thaw into something more personal. We started meeting for coffee to discuss the case, but our conversations would drift to other topics. The argument that had divided us in 2016 seemed smaller now, less important than the fact that we were family. One evening, while reviewing documents in his office, Lawrence put down his pen and looked directly at me. "Ethan, I need to tell you something. When you called me after all those years, you don't know what it meant to me. I thought I'd lost you forever." His words caught me off guard. My older brother, always so controlled and professional, was showing a vulnerability I had never seen. "I owe you an apology too," I said. "What I said at Dad's funeral? About your career choices? I was wrong. You've built something impressive here. Lawrence stirred his coffee thoughtfully. And I was wrong about academia being a waste of your talent. You found your lane, your purpose. That matters more than making money. It wasn't a complete reconciliation. 9 years of silence don't vanish overnight. But it was a start. And for the first time in almost a decade, I felt like I had my brother back. In early September, we returned to the D.C. courthouse for the final hearing. The contrast was stark. Where Chloe had once appeared confident and in control, she now looked haggard and desperate. Her new lawyer, the nervous young Perry Young, was clearly out of his depth. His hands shook as he organized his papers, and he kept glancing at Lawrence like a rabbit watching a wolf. Judge Reeves reviewed the audit results with the thoroughness they deserved. The numbers were damning, but it was the pattern that told the real story. Systematic deceit, continuous fraud, and a complete betrayal of marital trust. Ms. Caldwell, Judge Reeves said, the evidence suggests you have diverted substantial marital assets for personal use during an extramarital relationship. Do you dispute these findings? Young whispered urgently to Chloe before rising. Your Honor, my client acknowledges certain financial irregularities, but maintains that her requests for asset division remain reasonable. Lawrence immediately stood. Your Honor, Ms. Caldwell did not commit financial irregularities. She committed the felonies of fraud and forgery. She forged my client's signature on loan documents, opened secret credit accounts, and systematically stole from their joint savings to fund an affair she has maintained for over a year. This is not a marital dissolution. It is a matter that could result in criminal liability. The mention of criminal liability hit the courtroom like lightning. Young went pale. Chloe gripped the table so tightly, her knuckles were white, and even I felt the weight of it. Lawrence wasn't just destroying her civil case. He was threatening her freedom. Judge Reeves's expression was serious. Mr. Caldwell, are you suggesting this court should refer this matter to the U.S. Attorney's Office? I'm suggesting, Your Honor, that Ms. Caldwell's actions constitute fraud and forgery under the criminal code. However, my client is primarily interested in recovering his diverted assets and dissolving this marriage without further financial damage, provided a fair settlement is reached through mediation. It was masterful. Lawrence was offering Chloe a way out of criminal charges, but only if she abandoned her ridiculous demands and accepted reasonable terms. The threat was implicit, but clear. Take the deal or face prosecution. Young requested a brief recess to consult with his client. I watched them huddle in the corner, Chloe gesticulating frantically, while Young repeatedly shook his head. When they returned, her fight was gone. The confident woman who had delivered her ultimatum 2 months ago had been replaced by someone desperate to avoid jail. Your Honor, Young said quietly, my client is prepared to accept a revised settlement through mediation. The final terms bore no resemblance to Chloe's original demands. She received no spousal support. The condo would be sold, with the proceeds divided 50-50, after she reimbursed the diverted funds. She kept her personal possessions and half of what remained in our legitimate joint savings after reimbursing the fraudulent expenses. She was also required to pay Lawrence's legal fees, which totaled $32,000. Most importantly, she signed a comprehensive release acknowledging her financial misconduct and waiving any future claims against me. When Judge Reeves signed the divorce order, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The marriage was over, but so was the uncertainty, the betrayal, and the fear of financial ruin. Outside the courthouse, Chloe approached me one last time. Devin Brooks had dumped her when the legal troubles started. Her friends had distanced themselves when the scandal broke, and her reputation was in ruins. She looked broken, much older than her 35 years. "Ethan," she said softly, "I never wanted it to come this far." I looked at her for a long moment, remembering the woman I had married, trying to reconcile that memory with the person who had tried to destroy me. "Yes, you did, Chloe. You wanted it to come exactly this far. You just didn't expect me to fight back." She had nothing to say to that. A week later, I moved into a small but comfortable condo in the Cleveland Park neighborhood, not far from the university. It was mine, completely and legally purchased with my portion of the asset division. The purchase price was $650,000, and the mortgage payments were manageable on my professor's salary. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely content with my living situation. But the most important change in my life wasn't the condo or the financial resolution. It was the relationship I had rebuilt with my brother. Lawrence and I started meeting for dinner every few weeks, gradually bridging the gap that 9 years of silence had created. We talked about our father, about the argument that had separated us in 2016, and about the different paths we had chosen. We were different people now, more mature, less concerned with being right than with being family. "You know," he said during one of our dinners in a downtown restaurant, "I always wondered if you'd made the right choice staying in academia. Now, I think maybe you did. You have something I don't have." "What's that?" "Peace, integrity. You became exactly who you wanted to be, not who circumstances forced you to be." It was the first time in our adult lives my older brother had expressed respect for my choices. It meant more than any legal victory. Last week, I received word that Chloe had moved to San Diego, starting over with a new identity and whatever was left of her resources. Devin Brooks had apparently moved on to his next married woman. The condo we had shared was sold to a young couple with small children who would fill it with laughter and hope instead of lies and betrayal. I never saw her again, and I never wanted to. The experience taught me something valuable about appearances and assumptions. Chloe had looked at me and seen weakness where there was actually strength. She had assumed isolation where there was actually family. She had mistaken my quiet nature for powerlessness, not realizing that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who make no noise. I'm still teaching at Howard University, still grading papers, and discussing Reconstruction with students who think they understand conflict, but I understand it differently now. I know that the most decisive battles aren't always fought with raised voices and dramatic gestures. Sometimes they're won with patient preparation, careful documentation, and knowing when to make the right phone call. And I know that family, even complicated family, is worth more than pride. My name is Ethan Caldwell. I'm 38 years old, and I am exactly where I need to be. Chloe tried to take everything from me, but in the end, she gave me something more valuable than anything she could have stolen. She gave me back my brother. The best revenge, I learned, isn't always what you take from your enemies. Sometimes it's what they accidentally give you while trying to destroy you. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get updates on new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.